Welcome to Catholic Connection with Teresa Tomeo, keeping you connected to your faith and your world. Teresa tackles the issues of faith and culture, the pro-life message, and media awareness. And now, here's Teresa Tomeo.
Happy Tuesday. It's August 26, 2025. Great to be with you on EWTN's Catholic Connection every day, Monday through Friday, and looking forward to heading to the EWTN Catholic Radio Conference after the show today. Be hopping on a plane and going down to see my brothers and sisters with the network, and we're going to have a great week, and we'll be coming to you from, of course, the area with our shows, fresh shows, and doing all live programs on Thursday, which will be a lot of fun. So look for that. Just stay tuned, of course, to Catholic Radio. In the meantime, though, we have a great show lined up for you this morning. Very excited to have my dear friend and fellow Michigander, Dr. Monica Miller, with us. She's recently written an article, and I'm so glad she did this. Women Deacons, Here's Why Not. There has been so many questions and so much discussion, even at the Vatican, about the women diaconate, female diaconate. And Monica is a moral theologian in addition to a pro-life warrior. And she lays out the very good and true arguments as to why that just isn't going to happen and not going to work, by the way. And what's frustrating to me, and again, my husband has been a deacon now, it's going on 13 years in October, is that I never felt the need or the desire as a woman to say, well, gee, if you're becoming a deacon, then I should be able to do the same thing. We are equal but different. And equality, as John Paul II always told us, does not mean sameness. We have unique gifts and qualities made in the image and likeness of God, male and female, and they apply differently, and we apply them differently in our lives. So we'll discuss with Dr. Monica, and we'll tell you how to get her article that she wrote about this very important topic. And then hold on to your stomachs, because you're going to be laughing so hard you're going to have a stomach ache. Father Joe Krupp from the Diocese of Lansing is going to be our MC for the Good News Cruise in 2026 and 2027. Now, 2026 will be in February. It's sold out. It's booked to the max. We have 800 people on a waiting list, but we are launching the Good News Cruise 2027, and there are some amazing speakers, including many from EWTN. And Father Joe will fill us in. Now, Father Joe has his own podcast, which is very, very popular. And he's very, very funny. He's very real. And he's an amazing preacher and teacher. But I can't wait for you to hear again from Father Joe Krupp. He could be one of the reasons that you go on the cruise. I'm not kidding. I mean, you see, an MC, and an MC keeps everything running smoothly and everything on time. And I know I MC quite a bit. It's a lot of work. I think it's harder sometimes doing a talk because you have to keep everyone on schedule and you have to give updates during the day and whatnot. But he's so funny. It's kind of like part of the entertainment and part of the experience on the Good News Cruise has come to meet and see and spend time with Father Joe Krupp. He'll also be doing his podcast live on the cruise as well. So our hour today, Dr. Monica Miller and Father Joe Krupp, and that will be the first hour of our program. Of course, we have hour 2 coming up on EWTN's Radio Extra, which we will discuss a little bit later on in the program. Now, weather-wise, areas of extreme heat still and fire weather affecting us in the northwest. And then we have heavy rain in the west and the south central part of the country. So here's what the National Weather Center is saying on a Tuesday morning, August 26. Extreme heat continuing in the interior northwest into midweek before finally moving out. Hot temperatures, dry, gusty winds, and isolated thunderstorms will bring critical fire weather. Also, heavy rain and thunderstorms expected across portions of the Great Basin, Rockies, and central southern plains. And then we have an atmospheric river will bring heavy rain and strong winds into parts of Alaska as well. So nobody's getting away from possibly some troublesome weather. That's what the weather forecast looks like, and that's our rundown, as we say in the biz. Right now it is 4 minutes past the hour, and it's time to get started with the news here on EWTN on a Tuesday. The Vatican says the Pope has released the theme for the 2026 World Day of Peace. Peace be with you all, toward an unarmed and disarming peace. The theme, noted the press release, invites humanity to reject the logic of violence and war and to embrace an authentic peace based on love and justice. On the evening of his election to the papacy on May 8th of this year and on several other occasions since then, the Pope has appealed for peace with the characteristic phrase, unarmed and disarming, to characterize the type of peace he hopes for in the world. The peace must be unarmed, he says. It is not based on fear, threats, or weapons. And it must be disarming, capable of resolving conflicts, opening hearts, and generating mutual trust, empathy, and hope. It's not enough to call for peace, he said. We must embody it in a way of life that rejects every form of violence, whether it be visible or systemic. Meanwhile, after a meeting with altar servers from France, Devin Watkins reports the Holy Father lamented the country's lack of priests and upheld the ministry of young people at the altar, saying the dignity of their service helps lead people into the sacred greatness of the mystery.
Pope Leo XIV met with around 360 altar servers from France on Monday as they made a pilgrimage to Rome with their priests and bishops as part of the Jubilee year. In his address, the Pope invited the young French Catholics to take time to speak to Jesus in the secrecy of their hearts and to love him more. In the midst of global issues as well as personal pain due to loss or worry, the Pope said, young people should look to Jesus, who has the power to save us.
Il y a une preuve certaine que Jésus nous aime et nous sauve.
There is certain proof that Jesus loves us and saves us, he said. He gave his life for us by offering it on the cross. The most wonderful thing about the Catholic faith, said Pope Leo XIV, is that God himself willed to suffer and die for us creatures. God loved us to the point of dying for us, he said. Pope Leo recalled that the Church hands down the memory of Jesus' sacrifice to save us through the Eucharist and daily celebration of Mass, which altar servers assist the priest in celebrating.
La célébration de la messe nous sauve aujourd'hui.
Dear altar servers, the celebration of the Mass saves us today, he said. It is the most important event in the life of the Christian and in the life of the Church, for it is the encounter where God gives himself to us in love again and again. Christians, added the Pope, do not attend Mass out of obligation, but out of love and our own need for the life of God.
Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton directing public schools across the state, Catholic News Agency tells us this morning, not enjoyed by ongoing litigation to comply with Senate Bill 10, a new law requiring the display of the Ten Commandments in every public school classroom. On August 20th, a judge issued a preliminary injunction after 16 families sued the state school districts, 11 of them arguing the law violates the First Amendment separation of church and state. Now, Paxton's office filed an appeal on August 21st, asserting the law reflects Texas' historical and moral foundation. From the beginning, he said the Ten Commandments have been irrevocably intertwined with America's legal, moral, and historical heritage. He said the woke radicals seeking to erase our nation's history will be defeated. I will not back down from defending the virtues and values that built our country. Brian Shook tells us the White House is touting over 1,000 arrests since taking over the nation's capital earlier this month.
According to the White House, 111 firearms have been seized, 6 known gang members have been arrested, and 49 homeless encampments have been cleared by the multi-agency teams. At this time, it's unclear when the federal police presence will be scaled back in the district. President Trump has previously threatened to turn his federal policing push to other cities, including Baltimore and Chicago. I'm Brian Shook.
And it has been 12 days since a murder in the nation's capital after the deployment of federal troops there. D.C. police telling the Washington Post back in March the nation's capital went 16 days without a murder, calling it the longest period in at least 6 years. Meanwhile, the police union is touting a drop in crime since the arrival of the National Guard. Compared to the 14 days prior to the federal control, robbery is down 42% and violent crime is down 25%. Tammy Trujillo tells us the president is also looking to put an end to a cashless bail system across the country.
The president signed an executive order Monday that threatens to withhold federal funding if cities don't end the practice.
That was when the big crime in this country started.
He also signed a separate order focused on the practice in Washington, D.C. This comes after the White House moved to deploy armed National Guard troops to fight crime in the district. I'm Tammy Trujillo.
A federal judge temporarily blocking Kilmar Obrego Garcia's deportation to Uganda. His lawyers filed a challenge of Trump administration's efforts to deport him for a second time after he was detained by ICE. The judge's order prevents him from being deported before August 28th of this week, with her adding that she's inclined to extend that stay until she has made a ruling in the case. And a record-breaking haul is being brought in on shore at Port Everglades, Florida.
We are witness to the largest drug offload in Coast Guard history.
That's Rear Admiral Adam Kami, who says the more than 76,000 pounds of cocaine and marijuana are worth more than $473 million. The more than 61,000 pounds of cocaine is enough to potentially kill 23 million people. The 11 vessels were taken in at sea took place during the Coast Guard cutter Hamilton's 2-month mission in the Eastern Pacific Ocean and Caribbean Sea. Prosecutors claim Venezuelan crime gangs are responsible for many of those vessels. A former Mexican cartel kingpin is pleading guilty to U.S. drug trafficking charges. Ismael El Mayo Zambada Garcia, who led a cartel, appeared in Brooklyn court to enter his plea and apologized for flooding the U.S. with cocaine and other illicit substances. He said through a Spanish-language interpreter that he apologizes for all of it and takes responsibilities for his actions. The 77-year-old will be sentenced to a mandatory life term in prison coming up in January. And transit workers are rallying behind a subway conductor who was brutally attacked in Brooklyn last year. As his attacker had his day in court yesterday, union members rallied at Kings County Court Monday, angry that Jonathan Davalos was able to secure a 15-year plea deal.
We wanted a more significant sentence for 15 years. It does send a message that when you assault a transit worker that you're going to get some serious time.
I'm mad as hell. There's no reason why our workers should be stabbed for any reason.
The union is also demanding that more is done to protect workers, especially when it comes to violent offenders. Davalos is accused of stabbing Myron Pollock multiple times after he ordered everyone off his 4 train in Crown Heights. Davalos was out on parole at the time of the assault of another conductor. Brian Shook tells us the Republican House Oversight Committee is issuing a new subpoena for documents held by the estate of late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
The committee is moving ahead with its probe into the disgraced financier with a request for his will, any documents resembling a client list, any black books containing Epstein's contacts, flight logs, and an alleged book of birthday letters from Epstein's friends. According to a letter from committee chair James Comer, the Epstein estate is ready and willing to provide these documents. I'm Brian Shook.
Governor DeSantis making an appearance at the convention of one of the nation's largest veterans organizations, telling the American Legion meeting in Tampa, Florida is the best state in the nation for veterans.
Florida is the only state in the country where both the lieutenant governor and the governor are military veterans. Of all 50 states, we're the only one.
Lieutenant Governor, former Green Beret Jay Collins, also on hand as Legionnaires gave DeSantis the name the James Day Award. And with high school football season now here, the Cleveland Clinic offering tips on how to lower the chances of getting a concussion. Sports medicine specialist Dr. Maria Schaefer recommending strengthening muscles in the head, neck, and upper back, wearing a mouth guard, and to stop playing after being hit when experiencing concussion symptoms.
If you have a head injury and then you get another hit, your brain could actually swell and you become unconscious and it could lead to death. So that's why it's very important to report these as soon as you feel the symptoms.
She's urging football players to report concussion-like symptoms right away. She says there is a risk of something called second impact syndrome, where if you have a head injury and then you get another hit, that could lead, again, as she said, to unconsciousness and brain swelling as well. It is a Tuesday morning. It's August 26, 2025. Great to be with you here on Catholic Connection, only on a Tuesday every day, Monday through Friday, right here on this very network. Coming up after the break, we're going to speak with our good friend, Dr. Monica Miller, and she is known, of course, for many things, including her great pro-life ministry, which she's carried on for decades. But she's also a moral theologian and recently wrote a very good piece, and it was entitled, Women Deacons, Here's Why Not. She'll explain up next. And then Father Joe Krupp from the Diocese of Lansing talking about the Good News Cruise 2007, which is being launched. GoodNewsCruise.com. Check it out. We'll be right back. Welcome back, Catholic Connection, 16 minutes past the hour. Always great to catch up with my dear friend and longtime pro-life warrior, Dr. Monica Miller. She's the director of Citizens for a Pro-Life Society, holding a degree in theater arts from Southern Illinois University and a graduate degree in theology from Loyola and Marquette University, and the author of several books, including Theology of the Passion of the Christ, and most recently, The Authority of Women in the Catholic Church from Emmaus Road, and also Abandon the Untold Story of the Abortion Wars, recently penning an article regarding Women Deacons, Here's Why Not. Monica, I was telling you during the break, and you know Deacon Dom has been now a deacon for almost 13 years, and I was saying at the top of the hour also, I never felt the need ever when he was praying about discernment and thinking he should, discerning the diaconate, that, I want to be a deacon too, so I'm going to join you when we go to Sacred Heart Major Seminary and take classes so I can be a deacon and a deacon's wife. It never dawned on me because I realize that we are different. We're equal, but different. So what prompted you to write this article? Thanks for joining us.
Well, actually, I was invited to do a debate on this issue with National Public Radio. Maybe 2-3 months ago. I didn't wind up doing the debate because they found someone else to do it, which was Pia de Solani.
Oh, she's great. Love her.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes. And I don't know who she was debating exactly, but I know that Phyllis Zagano was part of the panel for this particular NPR debate. And Phyllis is a very well-respected scholar, and one of her well, I may even say her maybe I should say her primary thing that she focuses on is getting women to be ordained as deacons in the Catholic Church. So if people want to look her up, that's probably what's going to come up is the issue of being getting women ordained as deacons in the Catholic Church. But anyway, so there's that.
Now, in terms of what Pope Francis did, you in starting out the article, and I'm looking at it, by the way, it was published on Crisis Friends on August 11th, if you want to take a look at it. In terms of the study of diaconate of women, they reconvened back in 2020, but so far the final reports of both commissions have not been made public, correct?
Right, that is correct, yes.
So what happens now? What's the latest on this then? Where do you think Pope Leo is going? Has you heard anything? What do we do with this information that may have been gathered that hasn't been released yet, or what's being done?
That's a very, very, very good question, Teresa. I don't think, if I'm going to make a prediction, I don't think that women are in fact, I'm going to say it pretty definitively, it's not going to happen. There is no way that women are going to be entering into holy orders, because that's what the issue is. It's not, look, it's possible, it is possible
right.
to ordain women as deaconesses. This happened in the early church. Even Saint Paul mentions the deaconess Phoebe at the end of his letter to the Romans, and lauds her as being of a great help, in terms of what she was doing in the church there in Centenere. So yes, women could be installed. Let's use the word installed or whatever, as deaconesses. But what the real issue is here, Teresa, is like someone like Phyllis Zagano, for example, wants women to be ordained as deaconesses within holy orders.
Right.
In other words,
right.
the female version of what we see as the permanent diaconate. It's not going to happen. And as I explain in my article, in terms of what is the theology here, the deacon, the male deacon stands on the side of Jesus, who is as a priest is standing on the side of Jesus in persona Christi Capitis.
Mm-hmm.
And male deacons are on the side of Christ, the bridegroom to the church. And I honestly don't see it happening, no matter how much the other side is pushing this, arguing for it, and so on. So that is my position, and that's what I'm arguing for in my article.
Why do you say? Why won't it happen? In terms of, do you think it would be too upsetting, divisive? What do you think? Or and why shouldn't women be deacons? You mentioned the persona Christi. I get that, but I'm in agreement with you. I don't think it should happen. Yes. I don't think it's going to happen. But and I don't have any problem with women not being able to be ordained, whether we're talking about the priesthood, which is never ever going to happen, or the diaconate. But why, in your eyes, Monica, as a moral theologian, would this not be a good thing?
Well, as I argue in my Crisis Magazine article, for women to be in the sanctuary at the altar, assisting in the celebration of the Eucharist, standing as deaconesses in relation to the priest who is in persona Christi Capitis, in the person of Christ, the head of the church. It will be indeed what I argue sacramental incoherency. Okay, so what ultimately is the problem here? Women are not on the side of Jesus to the church. What are women? Women are on the side of the church in relationship to Jesus. Women are the bride and the mother. That is what we sign. That is what we are in relationship to Christ. And the church is female in relationship to her head, in relationship to her bridegroom. Jesus is here. The whole thing has to do with what is the meaning of male and female sexuality.
Right. Exactly.
And does our gender, being male or female, have any sacramental transcendent symbolism? And the answer is yes. And there's absolutely no way to escape this. St. Paul gave us the ultimate exegesis on the meaning of being male or female. So you need to go to his letter to the Ephesians, chapter 5, verse 32. He does something absolutely remarkable. First of all, he says that Jesus is the bridegroom to the church. He gave himself up for her, okay? So let's get the male and the female pronouns going here, right? He gave himself up for her. The church is the bride of our Lord. Mm-hmm. And this is not just how should I put it?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is not just poetry. This is not just a nice way of talking. The whole covenant between God and his people is a maritally ordered covenant. He has willed it that way. And so St. Paul does something absolutely remarkable. He, without any introduction, he quotes Genesis chapter 2, verse 24, in Ephesians verse number 32. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and his mother and cling to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. And then the exegesis, the very next verse. This is a great mystery, for it refers to Christ and the church. Wow, it's incredible, Teresa. I mean, what is he saying? He is saying that from the very beginning of creation, beginning with a capital B, because that's a theological category. He is saying that male and female gender, from the very beginning, God has willed, God has created male and female sexuality as sacramental signs in order to actually sign and make present in this world the reality of his relationship to his people. And that's why women cannot be within holy orders. We've got the Catechism of the Catholic Church that says only V-I-R, males, can be ordained within holy orders, and also the canon law also makes that very, very
Monica,
clear.
let's pick it up after the break because I have some other questions I want to talk to you about. But this is where people have to stop thinking in terms of modern feminism and thinking of what the church taught, what Scripture said, and also about there's a difference with equality. It does not mean sameness. We'll take a stab at that when we come back. Women deacons, here's why not. There are many in the church who consider the ordination of women as deacons to be an unsettled question and are hopeful that the church will admit women to the diaconate soon. This is an unfounded hope, written by our friend Dr. Monica Miller, moral theologian, of course, and pro-life warrior. It was posted earlier this month on Crisis Magazine. You can see it at crisismagazine.com. What's real frustrating to me, Monica, is this question will not die, not just with, or this issue with the diaconate, but also with the male priesthood. There are still those pushing, even though Pope Francis was pretty clear about that. And I do think, just the reporter mind that I still have after so many years in the trenches, if they didn't release that report, that final report, that means it was inconclusive and people couldn't agree, because if they agreed one way or the other, especially if they agreed for women deacons, not that necessarily would happen because it was just basically a more or less, opinions of people being given to the Pope after research, there would have been some big news about that document, and it was not released, which I think is very telling. How about you?
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's kind of, in some ways, this really, in my opinion, is a settled issue. So it's not something that is up for debate. Even there's that old adage, Rome has spoken, the issue is closed. Right? But nowadays, as Rome has spoken, the issue is still open.
Yeah. Well, it's one thing to learn more about a decision and why women can't be priests or deacons.
Right.
That's fine, and to study it and to understand the scriptural basis, as you've done, the theological basis for it as well. But it's another to do what you just said and not accept what is being handed down. Now, the other point, too, is I am really frustrated with these people who just say, well, the problems will be solved in the church if priests could marry and if women could be deacons and if women could be more involved. There's this idea, and there's also this power struggle where so many people still see the priesthood and the diaconate as power. And let me tell you, as a deacon's wife, it's got absolutely nothing to do with that. It's servanthood, plain and simple. And it is not an easy thing to undertake, first of all. And as a deacon's wife, and I don't mind. I'm so proud of my husband. Still, after 13 years, I could burst. I have so many pictures of him on the altar. I drive my friends crazy. Oh, here's Dom here. Here's Dom here. Anyway, the point is that this ministry is so unique and so beautiful, and we need to accept that we are not the same as men, and that's not a bad thing. It doesn't mean we're weaker, but this is servanthood, and the diaconate is a huge commitment. And it's a commitment to servanthood. They put themselves on the altar. They lay down on the altar, and they basically give themselves over to God and the church. And this is a role for the man. There's a different role for women. And if you look at, and I know you know this because you wrote a book about it, all the women in powerful positions of the church, it doesn't mean that women can't lead, but they lead differently. I just frustrates me that people won't take a breath and think about it and automatically look at it in terms of radical feminism.
Well, the ultimate problem here is it has to do with the heresy, Teresa, that will never die. It'll be there 5 minutes before the second coming of our Lord, and that is the heresy of Gnosticism. That there is a split, there is a hostility between spirit, the disembodied spirit on the one side, and matter, all of the hard stuff that we live with in the historical order on the other side. So there is this hostility between spirit and matter, and of course the human body is on the side of matter. Okay, and in order to make the arguments for a female priesthood, or in this case a female diaconate, on the side of the priesthood, because that's where ultimately we're going, is to say that the human body, male and female, has no inherent significance.
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
That the true person is in the disembodied, invisible soul, and that's who we are. This is so completely anti-Catholic in every sense of the word. Anti-Catholic, because if there's one thing about Catholicism, it takes the physical world very seriously. Right? Okay, and what it means to be male and what it means to be female has a significance. And there's a fantastic quote from St. Edith Stein.
Oh, I love her.
Otherwise, I love her too. Actually, and she wrote a great deal on what it means to be feminine.
She did, right?
Yeah, spirituality and psychology and culturally and so on. So she says, woman is called upon to embody in her highest and purest development to be a sign of the what? Of Jesus? No, to be a sign of the church. So women are the sign of what it means to be in relation to Jesus, not men, women. And we need to cultivate that. We need to be focused on that. This is something that should be taught in the third grade catechism classes, so that we grow up with understanding this symbolism, this significance in terms of being female in relationship to our Lord.
Yeah, and how can we ignore who we are, male and female. It's so scriptural. It's so related to the church and the bride of Christ, and church always being referred to as Mother, Holy Mother Church. And there's so much. It's not just symbolism. As you explained, it has deep theological and scriptural meaning and references. And I also just want to encourage women out there that they should read Mulieris Dignitatem on the dignity and vocation of women, which it beautifully outlines womanhood according to John Paul II, the pastoral letter for women by John Paul II. And just really pray about what is it, why is it in your heart and on your mind that you're so insistent that women need to have these different roles? And what is it about the physical embodiment of who we are? Because if that didn't matter, Monica, why did Christ come down why was he born a male of a woman? Why didn't he just float down, which he could have, as a spirit?
Well, that or exactly, but that Jesus came as a vir, V-I-R, means that he is in relation. Human sexuality is essentially a relational experience. So he is in relation as a man to something. Well, what is the something? His church, his bride, and and as I argue in one of my books, the authority of women in the Catholic Church. Emmaus Road Publishing put it out back in 2012, I think it was. No, actually more recently than that. But to understand what it means to be female in relationship to our Lord as a sign of the church, and this goes back to the fathers of the church. This goes back to the Old Testament. Right? I mean, in the Old Testament, God is husband to his people. So our sexuality is taken up into the order of redemption. So it matters whether you're a man or a woman, and we have a sacramental spiritual meaning to our sexuality. And there's just this, how shall I put it, Teresa, an obsession. I think I can safely use that word, an obsession with, if women are not in some ways somehow formally ordained and recognized in a formal, ritualistic kind of way, somehow we are not equal. I think that is just a huge mistake, because it simply isn't true.
Well, and they're looking at it through the eyes of the world as opposed to the eyes of the church in Christ. And I also think they should get your book on the authority of women in the church and see just how much God and Jesus, how he treated women so differently in his time and upheld women's dignity. And, of course, giving the Blessed Mother to us from the cross. I mean, there's so much. And, again, these documents that I mentioned from John Paul II can be extremely helpful. Monica, we have to have you back on for the Day of Remembrance, which is coming up on the 13th, right?
Yes, the National Day of Remembrance for Aborted Babies, September 13th. Yes, we'll have. I'd love to talk to you about that, Teresa.
Absolutely. Good to talk to you, my dear Dr. Monica Miller. And we'll be right back on a Tuesday morning, August 26, 2025. I couldn't wait for this interview this morning. He's one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. Father Joe Krupp from the Diocese of Lansing. He's a great preacher and teacher, has a great podcast. We'll tell you about that in a minute. But first, we are this morning launching the Good News Cruise 2027. 2026 is sold out, but you can check out all the information at goodnewscruise.com. Father Joe, I can't wait to see you in February, but let's talk about 2027. Good morning, Padre. How are you?
Oh, good morning, Teresa. I'm so happy to talk to you. You know that. This is the best way to start my day is with Teresa freaking Tomeo. My only worry about Good News Cruise 2027 is that I might be Pope by then.
Oh, well, but can't popes can do cruises, right? I mean, if you're the Pope, then you could, so what's going to happen to Leo?
Well,
is there something you know that we don't know, that he's going to step aside and give the papacy to you?
I just assume. Yeah, I assume at some point he's going to meet me and think this man is much holier than me, much more humble.
I get it.
And then I'm going to need 168 Swiss Guard with me on the boat, because what if like a layperson touches me or something?
Right.
You know.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
in the meantime, before that happens, let's talk about the Good News Cruise 2027 and why you think people should come and be with us on the high seas.
Well, I'll tell you one of my favorite things. Every year they just load us up with ridiculous talent. right? Like, I don't know if you heard Teresa Tomio's going. But beyond that, did you know that Harry Connick Jr.
I know.
is going on this one?
I know.
The dude won Grammys.
Yeah. And he's such a nice guy. I've had the opportunity to interview him when I was in secular media. Very down to earth, very talented. He's been in movies and several big movies, but very talented performer and very Catholic. Very Catholic.
Oh yeah. And I'm very excited about that. I don't know if you saw Cardinal Dolan is going again.
Love him.
I know he's going to attempt an exorcism over Dr. Ray.
Oh, so again? It didn't work. It didn't take last
year.
year. It didn't take the last time, so he's got to do it again, right?
I think the seventh term is the charm. I do.
Well, that's God's numbers, so
Father
that would
Mike
make sense.
Schmidt. Yeah. I'm telling you, I'm excited for it because it is loaded with great people. Mike Schmitz is going to be there. Dr. Hahn and Kimberly are going to be there. The Everetts are going to be there. Did you see the list?
Yes, I did. It's pretty scary. Why they want us there, who
cow.
knows? But we'll just let these people come in and take over. And it's going to be fantastic. And it's so beautiful because this year, of course, 2026, technically next year, which is right around the corner, it's sold out. And we have 800 people, John Hale told me, from Corporate Travel Service on a waiting list. So that gives you an idea of how much not only fun people are having, Father, with these cruises, but how much it means to them to get involved in this. It's a very different experience, isn't it?
Totally. It's a marriage retreat on a freaking cruise ship, right? I mean, people laugh, they cry, you see couples drawing closer together, and it's not overscheduled. That's what I love. Couples get lots of time just to be together. They pick and choose what events they want to go to. Now, it is my understanding that if the MC is talking, they are obligated by the laws of God and man to be present. I mean, but that's just science. And if the queen of the cruise walks in the room, everyone stands.
Right.
But otherwise, I just think it's a phenomenal experience. And I've never heard a couple tell me they regret going.
Right. And there's so many people who repeat and come back and back again and again. We're talking with Father Joe Krupp. He is from the Diocese of Lansing. He is a dynamic Catholic priest, spirited speaker, and your friendly neighborhood affectionate shepherd known as Father Joe. Check out his cool website and his podcast, joeandblackministries.com. Again, joeandblackministries.com. And he is serving yet again as our MC on the High Seas for Good News Cruise. He's going to be there for 26 and 27. Now, how did you first get connected with the Good News Cruise? How did that start, Father?
Okay, I was fleeing a felony conviction. Wait, you know what? I don't want to tell that part. So Dave and John, the two, king guys at Corporate Travel, I've known them for years. And they just asked me to do it. They told me their plan. I'd never been on a cruise ship before.
Really?
Yeah, never. I mean, no. I hadn't been on anything bigger than a fishing boat, right? So I was a little worried, and but it just sounded so cool. And so we went, and I thought, I actually pay them now to let me serve as MC. They can get real priests. But the fact is they save money by getting me. No, I just enjoyed it. God's people seem to enjoy it. So I've been blessed. And that's where I got to get to know you.
Yeah. That's been one of my, I have to say, and I'm not just saying this because you're on the radio with me, but that has been one of our joys for me and Deacon Dom, to get to know you over the years and spend time with you, because you are just, you're really, what I love about you, Father, you're so funny and you're so real, and but you are so good at encouraging people in the faith. I mean, you just exude joy. You really do.
I appreciate you reading what I wrote just now. That means a lot.
Stop it! Accept the compliment, for crying out loud.
No, I got you, sis. You know that. I was blown away by you and Dr. Ray, and then I don't know if you remember it. And it's got better every year. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not kidding. I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm just describing what is.
Right.
And I know, like, we want to plant these seeds in everyone's head, because you can't register yet, obviously. But we just got to get it in people's heads for that glorious day when they can jump on the internet on goodnewscruise.com and sign up for 27. Because like you said, what is it, 800 people on the waiting list for this next
for this
one?
cruise in 2026. Yeah.
And I'm 5 of them, Teresa. Because of the weight limit stuff, I'm 5 of those 700.
Oh, you're so funny. Goodnewscruise.com. I want to give people the website. Again, as Father said, you can call corporate travel for more information, but you want to get on a waiting list. You want to check this out. And I'm telling you, Father, it sells out so quickly now. And people say, it's sold out. I can't. Well, that's why we talk about it early on. So you can get in on this and make sure you know about it. So for the information as to when you can, jump on and sign up and all that good stuff, goodnewscruise.com. And Father Joe will be our fearless MC. I'm a little bit worried about Guarendi, though. Have you talked to him lately? I haven't talked. I'm going to see him this week at the radio conference, so I'm sure he'll have some interesting things to say. But is he going to try to take over the ship again like he did last year?
I think so, and he owes me $5, so he's been dodging me, So, no, but I can't wait to see him. He brings joy and wisdom, and I had a really long talk with him, and we actually had a serious talk at one point. It was about Carrie, but I just said to him, "You're redeeming therapy." Right? I don't know how else to say it, but instead of I'm going to form a 20-year relationship of dependency, right? Instead, he's like, I need people free, and I can mess around, or I can just tell them the truth and guide them through it. And that has been so helpful to so many of our couples.
Yeah.
So many. Man.
I think too, Father, and you know this as a parish priest and dealing with you mentioned earlier, dealing with couples who are in struggling marriages, to have this time together, and even though you're together with the several thousand people, because this year we have the whole ship to ourselves in 26 on the Holland America cruise lines, which is going to be new for us, which is awesome. So everybody on that ship is going to be the giant. I always say it's going to be the biggest Catholic conga line in U.S. history. That's me speaking as a dancing queen. But when you are in a different setting and you're around like-minded people, and as a couple you have time to go back to your cabin and talk about things, or maybe just take a walk on, go off on when we go into port and spend some time alone, and when you hear testimonies of other couples, what does that mean for maybe a married couple that's on the ship who's struggling a little bit, Father? As a priest, what would you say?
I think the knowledge that you're not alone. I just finished the book, The Anxious Generation, and one of the things that blew me away is how many parents find it a ton easier to do the right thing when they know they're not alone and that other people have a similar vision. And in the book, he just talked about how many parents, as soon as they have permission, right, from the group to try to do what's right, they do. And I think in this case, all these frankly normal Catholics, right, just normal dudes and dudettes trying to be holy and live good lives. And they look around and they see thousands of couples who have the same goal, right? They, our God is a community, right? God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. And we were created by a community. And so community is just hardwired into our spiritual DNA. And so there's just this power in being together and saying, we're going to do this, and we're not alone. I really think that's the big part of it.
I do too. And I also think it's important for us to have fun together as Catholics. In addition to hearing great talks, for example, Cardinal Dolan's going to be there, Father Mike Schmitz, as you mentioned, Kimberly and Scott Hahn, Sarah and Andrew
Teresa Tomeo,
Kristalina and Jason Everett, Tim Gray. I mean, these are
Teresa
amazing
Tomeo.
People. Stop it. And thank
Tomeo.
you for reading what I told you to read when I wrote for
the
myself.
Queen of the Cruise. For those who aren't familiar, if you have not been blessed to go on the greatest Catholic event since the First Vatican Council, we have a Queen of the Cruise. She has a crown, and her name is Teresa Tomeo, and we say her name with reverence.
You did crown me the Queen of the Cruise. I even have a crown to prove it. I do. Yeah.
Heck yeah. I don't know if you know this. I saw a vision of angels taking notes when you were getting crowned.
This is why you need to come.
I might
just
have
to
made
hear
that
Father.
up.
Yes, you made that up totally. Just to hear Father Joe Krupp. But I am so excited. This list is crazy of these speakers for 27. Harry Connick Jr.
Oh,
again,
my
Mike
gosh.
Schmitz, Cardinal Timothy Dolan, who's so funny. I love him. He's so joyful. Kimberly and Scott, who are great. They're awesome. You don't even need an introduction. And all these other speakers. I mean, it's just going to be phenomenal. And you get to meet them and spend time with them. And you get to have fun. You get to enjoy great food. By the way, the only problem is, here's the thing. You know, Dr. Ray actually, he actually takes over the upper deck on the Royal Caribbean ships with the buffet. Okay, so I don't know if there's the same... if there's the same setup on a Holland America cruise. So that's going to be a little bit of an adjustment for Dr. Ray.
The Dutch Navy will actually be there with those water cannons to try to fight Ray off the buffet tables. Because other people, in the words of St. John, other people got to eat too. You know what I mean? That's in the gospel. Don't look it up.
That's so funny.
But,
he just sits there for hours at the buffet and just stays there. And then, like, if you're not finished, if you're talking, which I often do when I'm surprised, shocked when I'm eating, you gonna eat that? You gonna eat that? Like, here, Ray, just take it. Just go ahead, take it. You know. Anyway, I miss you. You're only in Lansing, and we haven't seen each other. How's things in Lansing, by the way?
Oh, good. We're doing great here. We just we're building a building right now. Like, we do a massive care. We do 10% of our collection goes to the poor and needy, right? And we distribute it through clothing, food, rent, utilities, the whole thing. Well, we're building a building to do all that because we were just literally out of room. And it was a big act of faith for us. And I'll be honest, I was scared, but Jesus helped us, and we hit our goal. And the building's almost done, and we're pretty fired up about it.
Well, you're a gift, and I love your podcast. It's so much fun. I've been on it before. Joe and Black Ministries is Father's. Joe and Black is actually the podcast. It's really cool. Check it out. He'll be doing the podcast live on the 2026 cruise, along with 2027 as well. GoodNewsCruise.com to get all the information and to make sure you can register in time. GoodNewsCruise.com for 2027. Father Joe, myself, Deacon Dom, Dr. Ray, Harry Connor Jr., Father Mike Schmitz, Cardinal Dolan, Kimberly and Scott Hahn, and many more. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Frankie. Hi, this is Scully. You're listening to Our Aunt Tree on EWTN.
Thank you, girlies. Girls just turned 9, if you can believe it. Mamma mia, time flies. Francesca and Liliana, our grandnieces, adorable. They head back to school next week. Anyhow, so do many of your children and grandchildren, I'm sure. All right, coming up in the next hour, we are going to be visiting with Kelly Salomon and our Newman Guide News. There's so many different stories, being that this is back to school time, of course, Labor Day weekend coming up, and many classes are already starting, especially at the college campuses. And many grade schools are also beginning at least half days going into the Labor Day weekend. And so there are a number of different headlines. I don't know if you've been following this story of this young volleyball player where this boy who identifies as a girl joined the team and pretty much wiped out several opportunities for young girls. Similar situation in Chicago. There's a number of those stories that are developing. So we'll discuss that with Kelly Salomon and Newman Guide News and some other interesting stories. And in 2 cents, we're going to take a look. There's a lot of developing news, different media stories that I want to share with you, especially some of the images that are put out regarding the terrible situation in Gaza. Now, we know the Catholic bishops are asking us to support the people in Gaza, and the Vatican is raising a great deal of awareness about the horrible conditions. So we are aware that there are serious, serious problems and people that are very vulnerable and really struggling with hunger and horrible conditions. But the media are not being truthful in the sense that they're using different pictures of different people that are not representing people actually impacted by the situation in Gaza. Now, it's one thing to get the word out and to support those people. It's another thing for the media to do that incorrectly and not factually. We'll talk about that in our segment for 2 cents coming up in about 15 minutes. We'll see you then on EWTN Radio Extra.
Welcome to Catholic Connection with Teresa Tomeo, keeping you connected to your faith and your world. Teresa tackles the issues of faith and culture, the pro-life message, and media awareness. And now, here's Teresa Tomeo.
It's hour number 2 here on EWTN Radio Extra. Thanks for tuning in on this Tuesday, August 26th. Hope you're doing well. And Pray for all of us heading to the EWTN Catholic Radio Conference. That's happening today for me right after the show. Many of our staff are already there, including our radio director, Jack Williams, and of course his beautiful bride, my dear sister, Jeanette Williams, broadcasting live from the radio conference or from the event this week. It'll be just outside Washington, D.C. at a beautiful complex in Virginia. And then tomorrow I'm excited because they always do a retreat portion of the radio conference. And we have Mass, and we have great speeches, and then we have a lunchtime together, and then, of course, we gather after that and head back to the hotel. Tonight, we're having actually a reception that's being put on by Guadalupe Radio and Catholic Answers, so that'll be fun to catch up with a lot of people. And I hope Dr. Ray doesn't eat all the shrimp. I'll have to be very careful about that and make sure that I keep him away from the buffet table, as I said in the first part of the program. But anyway, that starts today, and it wraps up on Friday morning, and then that goes right into the beautiful EWTN family celebrations. You can check that all out at EWTN.com. You can even do EWTN family celebration, EWTN radio conference. Now, the radio conference is for folks who work in Catholic radio or are interested in starting a Catholic radio station. Now, the family celebration is open to the public and, of course, our EWTN family members. That's what's happening this week with the radio crew. And we will be reporting from there. We'll have a live broadcast on Thursday of Catholic Connection and our other programs as well. Coming up on a Tuesday, there's a story that's been developing. It's really interesting, and I'm glad to see the secular media finally addressing it. We all know the horrible conditions in Gaza and what's happening there with the people and how many of them are struggling with hunger, deplorable conditions, and the church is speaking out about it. Also, the bishops are raising awareness and reminding people whatever they can do to support the people of Gaza. So there's a fundraising effort there. And we need to know what's happening there because we are to be caring for the most vulnerable and to helping those, especially who are struggling in these extreme situations. And the media have a responsibility to report that accurately. And given the Pope's statement on peace of the World Day of Peace, and given the statement from Cardinal Pierre-Lim, which we'll talk about in the next segment after the news, it's really important for the media to let us know what's happening. But they need to be presenting accurate pictures. Now, certainly there should be enough material in Gaza that they can give us the truth, that they can show us the families who are struggling. Instead, unfortunately, what has happened repeatedly is that they have been taking pictures of children and people that are not actually being affected by what's happening in Gaza, but are struggling with other illnesses to put forth an agenda. Now, this is nothing new for Hamas, actually, which uses its people often, as we know from political stories, to get their agenda across. But the media have a responsibility. And if they really want people to know what's going on, you would think that they don't have to be lazy about it. There are people that are struggling. There are people that are starving. This needs to be addressed. But it needs to be addressed truthfully like every other story. And we'll talk about that in our 2 cents segment. And then, because it's a Tuesday, of course, we have the Newman Guide News with our very own Kelly Salomon from the Cardinal Newman Society on a Tuesday morning. 3 minutes past the hour, let's take a look at the weather. The National Weather Service says we have extreme heat continuing in the interior Northwest into midweek before finally waning. Hot temperatures, dry gusty winds, and isolated thunderstorms will bring dry thunderstorms actually will bring critical fire weather. And then we have heavy rain and thunderstorms expected across portions of the Great Basin, the Rockies, and the Central and Southern Plains. It's already 4 minutes past the hour in the second hour of Catholic Connection on Tuesday, August 26th, EWTN Radio Extra. Let's check the news right now at 4 minutes past. Pope Leo releasing the theme for the 2026 World Day of Peace, Peace Be With You All, toward an unarmed and disarming pace, as the Vatican Publishing House produces a book entitled And Let There Be Peace. The theme, according to the Vatican, invites humanity to reject the logic of violence and war and to embrace an authentic peace based on love and justice. On the evening of his election to the papacy on May 8th and on several other occasions since then, the Pope appealing for peace with the characteristic phrase, unarmed and disarming, to characterize the type of peace he hopes for the world. This peace, he said, must be unarmed, that is not based on fear, threats, or weapons, and it must be disarming, capable of resolving conflicts, opening hearts, and generating mutual trust, empathy, and hope. It's not enough to call for peace. We must embody it, he says, in a way of life that rejects every form of violence, whether it be visible or systemic. And meeting with altar service from France, Devin Watkins tells us from Rome that Pope Leo laments the country's lack of priests and upholds the ministry of young people at the altar, saying the dignity of their service helps lead people into the sacred greatness of the mystery.
Pope Leo XIV met with around 360 altar servers from France on Monday as they made a pilgrimage to Rome with their priests and bishops as part of the Jubilee year. In his address, the Pope invited the young French Catholics to take time to speak to Jesus in the secrecy of their hearts and to love him more. In the midst of global issues as well as personal pain due to loss or worry, the Pope said, young people should look to Jesus, who has the power to save us.
Il y a une preuve certaine que Jésus nous aime et nous sauve.
There is certain proof that Jesus loves us and saves us, he said. He gave his life for us by offering it on the cross. The most wonderful thing about the Catholic faith, said Pope Leo XIV, is that God himself willed to suffer and die for us creatures. God loved us to the point of dying for us, he said. Pope Leo recalled that the Church hands down the memory of Jesus' sacrifice to save us through the Eucharist and daily celebration of Mass, which altar servers assist the priest in celebrating.
La célébration de la messe nous sauve aujourd'hui.
Dear altar servers, the celebration of the Mass saves us today, he said. It is the most important event in the life of the Christian and in the life of the Church, for it is the encounter where God gives himself to us in love again and again. Christians, added the Pope, do not attend Mass out of obligation, but out of love and our own need for the life of God.
In other news, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton has directed public school officials across his state who are not enjoined by the ongoing litigation to comply with Senate Bill 10. That's a new law requiring the display of the Ten Commandments in every school classroom. Now, as Catholic News Agency tells us, on August 20th, a district judge issued a preliminary injunction after 16 families sued 11 Texas school districts, arguing the law violates the First Amendment separation of church and state. Paxton's office filing an appeal on the 21st of August, asserting the law reflects Texas's historical and moral foundation. He said, from the beginning, the Ten Commandments have been irrevocably intertwined with America's legal, moral, and historical heritage. Paxton said in August 25th press release, the woke radicals seeking to erase our nation's history will be defeated, and he will not back down, he says, from defending the virtues and values that built our country. Brian Shook tells us the White House is touting over 1,000 arrests since taking over the nation's capital earlier this month.
And 11 firearms have been seized, 6 known gang members have been arrested, and 49 homeless encampments have been cleared by the multi-agency teams. At this time, it's unclear when the federal police presence will be scaled back in the district. President Trump has previously threatened to turn his federal policing push to other cities, including Baltimore and Chicago. I'm Brian Shook.
And it's been 12 days, by the way, since a murder in Washington, D.C., according to the president, after Trump's deployment of federal troops to the city. The D.C. Police Union is also touting a drop in crime since the arrival of the National Guard compared to the 14 days prior to the federal control. Some claim robbery was down 42%. And Tammy Trujillo tells us President Trump is also looking now to put an end to cashless bail across the country.
The president signed an executive order Monday that threatens to withhold federal funding if cities don't end the practice.
That was when the big crime in this country started.
He also signed a separate order focused on the practice in Washington, D.C. This comes after the White House moved to deploy armed National Guard troops to fight crime in the district. I'm Tammy Trujillo.
A federal judge has temporarily blocked Kilmar Albrego Garcia's deportation to Uganda. His lawyers filed a challenge for Trump's administration's efforts to deport him for a second time after he was detained by ICE, a judge's order preventing him from being deported before August 28th, with her adding that she's inclined to extend the stay until she has made a ruling in the case. And a record-breaking haul is being brought on shore at Port Everglades, Florida.
We are witness to the largest drug offload in Coast Guard history.
That's Rear Admiral Charmé, who says the more than 76,000 pounds of cocaine and marijuana are worth more than $473 million, and the more than 61,000 pounds of cocaine is enough to potentially kill, get this, 23 million people. A former Mexican cartel kingpin is pleading guilty to U.S. drug trafficking charges. He led the cartel with El Chapo appeared in a Brooklyn courtroom to enter his plea and apologize for flooding the country with cocaine and other illicit substances. Zambada Garcia saying through a Spanish-language interpreter that he apologizes for all of it and takes responsibility for his actions. The 77-year-old will be sentenced to a mandatory life term, and that will happen on January 13th. Over in New York City, transit workers rallying behind a subway conductor who was brutally attacked in Brooklyn last year, and his attacker had a day in court. Union members rallied at Kings County Court yesterday, angry that Jonathan Davalos was able to secure a 15-year plea deal.
We wanted a more significant sentence for 15 years. It does send a message that when you assault a transit worker that you're going to get some serious time.
I'm mad as hell. There's no reason why our workers should be stabbed for any reason.
The local union is also demanding that more is done to protect workers, especially when it comes to violent offenders. Davalos is accused of stabbing Myron Pollock multiple times after Pollock ordered everyone off his 4 train in Crown Heights. Davalos was out on parole at the time in the assault of another conductor. Governor Ron DeSantis from Florida making an appearance at the convention of one of the nation's largest veterans organizations. He tells the American Legion meeting in Tampa Florida is the best state in the nation for veterans.
Florida is the only state in the country where both the lieutenant governor and the governor are military veterans. Of all 50 states, we're the only one.
Lieutenant Governor, former Green Bay Jay Collins, was also on hand at the event, and they gave DeSantis the James Day Award. And with high school football season now here, the Cleveland Clinic is offering tips on how to lower the chances of getting a concussion. Sports medicine specialist Dr. Marie Schaefer is recommending strengthening the muscles in the head, neck, and upper back, and wearing a mouth guard, and to stop playing after being hit when experiencing concussion symptoms.
If you have a head injury and then you get another hit, your brain could actually swell and you become unconscious, and it could lead to death. So that's why it's very important to report these as soon as you feel the symptoms.
And she says she's urging football players to report concussion-like symptoms right away. It is a Tuesday morning. It is August 26th, and can you believe that we are heading into Labor Day weekend? And we've got some special programs coming up for you as we enter into that very special weekend. More on that later. Coming up next in our 2 cent segment here on EWTN's Radio Extra. There is a story that, given all the news of late, including a statement that just came out from Cardinal Pietro Parolin, the peace statement that's being put out by the Holy Father and the title for the Day of Peace next year, it's important to understand what is truly happening in the Middle East. And we need reporters to do their jobs and to do them accurately and to do them well. And you would think that given all the horrific conditions in Gaza, that journalists wouldn't have to be lazy and use pictures that are not actually of residents suffering from the actual challenges in Gaza, but something else. We'll talk about this. A very good article on the website, The Free Press, Journalists Against Journalism. More on that coming up. Welcome back, Catholic Connection. Hope you're having a great day. Always trying to keep you connected, hence the name of the program, Catholic Connection, to what's happening in the world. And of course, being that I have a media background and have been doing media since dirt, well, pretty much 44 years now. I graduated from college, believe it or not, in 1981. It really is heartbreaking to me when I see the media getting very lazy and not doing their jobs. Now, there is so much information out there about various stories. So it's important that we consider the source and we stop and think and we make sure we really have the accurate information needed to make decisions on how we respond to whatever crisis or whatever story may be happening. So first I want to read the statement, the latest statement from Cardinal Pietro Parolin, talking about the situation in Gaza. There's a story this week, and a quote is, "We are appalled at what is happening in Gaza." And let me read this to you. You can find this statement, by the way, on Vatican News. "We are appalled by what's happening in Gaza, despite the condemnation of the whole world," Cardinal Parolin said, noting there's a unanimity in condemning what is taking place. Speaking on the sidelines of the inauguration of the liturgical week, the cardinal referred to the Israeli strike on the Nasser hospital, which killed 20 people recently, including journalists. It makes no sense, adding that there seem to be no openings for a solution, and the situation is becoming increasingly complicated, and from a humanitarian perspective, increasingly precarious with all the consequences we are seeing day by day. So the Vatican has made it very, very clear in terms of their concerns. The Pope has been speaking out about this every chance he gets, including mentioning it at the Angelus, at the audience, always talking about peace. And of course, as you've been hearing in the news this week, he also released a theme for the 2026 World Day of Peace. Peace be with you, toward an unarmed and disarming peace. And the Vatican is now, in conjunction with that, producing a book entitled Let There Be Peace. Here in the United States, the church has also been doing a very, very good job of raising awareness on the plight of the people in Gaza, while at the same time calling for the release of the hostages that are still being held, the Jewish hostages that are still being held by Hamas. Now, the secular media, unfortunately, have not presented a balanced perspective on this story. The research shows that they are very much against Israel and very much for Palestinian governments. There's a really good website, though, that's out there that has done a good job of sorting through confusion and trying to get to the facts, and also calling out fellow reporters when they're not doing their jobs properly. And that website is the Free Press, and you can find it at thefp.com. Now, it's made up of journalists, many of whom are former major secular news reporters, including, you remember, Early Berliner, who worked for NPR and resigned, left his job because he was so upset with the bias that he was seeing at NPR. And even though he tried repeatedly, this guy is an award winner, a very, very well experienced journalist. He tried repeatedly to get things taken care of in-house. He went to his boss. He went to his boss's boss. He had tried to get in to see the very, very, very top people at NPR and public broadcasting in general, but they kept delaying and putting it off. And he just saw repeated signs of liberal bias, and so he walked away. Now, the interesting thing is he's a liberal himself. He makes no bones about the fact that he has never voted for a Republican. He was raised in a very liberal household, and he does not agree with President Trump, nor has he ever voted for Trump. But he says that's not the point. The point is that we are reporters and we're supposed to be accurate. And so now he's a big part of the Free Press team. So this is an investigation that was done by fellow reporters calling out other journalists. Again, the title of this article at the Free Press, which is thefp.com, Journalists Against Journalism. And now the media are all upset that the Free Press has done this story. The subtitle of their article is, Our critics can call us any name they like, but that doesn't change the facts. Last week, the Free Press ran an investigation, this is from the story, into a dozen viral photos published by major media outlets aimed at depicting starvation in Gaza. All 12 pictures, the report says, featured distressed Gazans, mostly children. All were skin and bones, and all suffered from pre-existing conditions such as cerebral palsy. Crucially, the last piece of information was absent from the captions or news stories they accompanied. In leaving out that context, the outlets presented an incomplete story, rather than typifying the situation in Gaza right now. These are exceptional cases. The Free Press says, we're proud of the report of the reporters who tracked it down. In doing so, the two reported performed a public service by asking and answering a simple question. In a moment of widespread charges by international institutions and news outlets about hunger in Gaza, are these photographs representative? More, how is it that journalists failed to scrutinize information coming out of a war zone with an active terrorist group conducting information warfare? Goes on to say, journalistic outlets love to boast about impact, and this story has had more than its share. The Free Press says that the cable news network CNN updated its piece after their reporting, noting that the top story had been updated to reflect new information regarding the condition of some of the subjects. So did the Washington Post, issuing a correction to say that it had incorrectly used a year-old photo in its current coverage of mass starvation in Gaza. A year-old photo. In a normal time, this is a kind of work that would be praised by our peers for getting to ground truth, but we don't live in normal times. And that is not how some of our colleagues in the news media saw things. Those who care about the truth will note that these children were not presented as the initial victims of anything. They were deceptively promoted to reflect the average resident of Gaza. To suggest otherwise betrays a fleeting responsibility with reality. So this is the problem here, folks. There is a horrible situation in Gaza. Nobody's denying that, okay? But why are the media, many of them, as we're describing here, so lazy that they can't get to the truth? Certainly, the Vatican News Department is reporting on this every day. Go to the Vatican website. They can probably get the pictures from there with permission. Why are they taking pictures from the terrorist organization Hamas, which is known for its information warfare, as this article indicates? And quite frankly, why aren't they talking to people who are on the ground, especially Catholics there, who have seen and continue to see the destruction and the devastation? They don't have to use pictures that are not actually present pictures displaying the truth. Some of the pictures, as we mentioned, over a year old. Nobody is saying that we shouldn't talk about the tragedy in Gaza and what's happening there in the Middle East, which is horrible. And again, I started this conversation talking about the church raising awareness, Cardinal Pietro Paroline's latest statement, the Pope calling us to pay attention to this. But we need the truth and the reality of the situation. So we're blessed that we have Catholic organizations on the ground there that are doing whatever they can and that are reporting back for us and telling us the truth about the situation and what we can do to help. But what about other people? When we find out that this is, not realistic in terms of these pictures of who these people are at the time those pictures were taken, that doesn't do the situation in Gaza any justice. Because if it casts doubt when these stories get out there, what does that make people say? Well, maybe it's not that bad, so I don't have to do anything. If their concern is about the people of Gaza, the truth is what is going to help them. Not trying to use photos from this terrorist organization that uses the media all the time and its own people to get its point across and its agenda, of course. At the end of the day, the media need to be reporting the truth and accuracy. That's their job. Not to side with one side or the other. To show what's really happening and to use accurate photos. Let me go back to the point that among the photos were those that were over a year old of people struggling with previous conditions prior to what we're seeing in Gaza now, which is real life starvation and struggle. Again, nobody is saying that there aren't issues that need to be addressed and that we don't need to help. We do. But the reporters need to do their job and speak the truth. The truth is always going to aid and help in any situation. It's about time reporters started to do their jobs and not be lazy and push their own agendas. We'll be right back. Hope you're having a beautiful Tuesday morning. It's 28 minutes past the hour, August 26th. It's a Tuesday, and that means we have the Newman Guide News with our dear friend and sister in the Lord, our friend Kelly Salomon, from the Cardinal Newman Society. This is a very, very busy time of year for you, I might understand. Right, young lady? Lots going on.
It sure is. Back to school season, and lots of news coming out of schools and colleges, and Cardinal Newman Society keeping everyone informed and excited for a new year, hoping that students receive a good, faithful Catholic education. We're looking forward to these Tuesdays with you, Teresa, and reporting on the latest that's going on in the education space and giving that Catholic perspective on it.
So there's a whole slew of stories, and I've been following this, and you and I have been emailing, as we always do, back and forth for our segments for today. regarding what's happening with the schools and this whole transgender push. I saw a story, an interview, very, very sad story, about a young woman who basically lost her spot that she was hoping for on the volleyball team. I think she was from Denver, this particular one, and her mom was with her. Maybe she was from California. But either way, this boy, a very strong athlete, basically took her spot. And she says, look, I just wanted a fair shot and I didn't get it. And she had worked up to a certain point in athletics to get there. And then another story out of Chicago where the parents went to this school board meeting and complained. And one parent got taken out of the meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, Teresa, these stories are happening too often across our country. And I know I've mentioned to you that I was a college athlete myself. And so I feel for these girls who are being cut from the team because biological males are taking their spots in the team. And, you know, I'm so grateful for the impact athletics has had on my life. It helped me grow in virtue. It gave me the opportunity to pursue my gifts and talents that God had given me. And, you know, here at Cardinal Newman, we really see these issues where biological males competing in women's sports, it violates the dignity of the human person and so many of the principles we talk about, like safety in sports and fair play and justice and upholding that truth of the human person.
Where do you think this is going? I mean, it seems on the one end, because there have been some very good laws, signed in place by the new administration. But on the other end, you see these people pushing back against it and bringing a lot of these transgender athletes, these boys playing in girls' sports, forward.
Yes. It is happening a lot in many public school districts. You know, that one you mentioned in Illinois, I think they've been allowing biological males to compete in women's sports since 2011. And even after Trump issued his order on this, this particular Illinois High School Sports Association announced that it would not comply with that order. So there's a bit of a struggle going on here, and it'll be interesting to see how this all pans out. But it's definitely a reminder for us in our Catholic schools that we need to get this policy right, that the best Catholic schools should have a policy that biological men should not compete in their women's sports teams. This is so important for the formation of the person, for, you know, if you're really trying to educate students and teach them the truth about the human person and how they're made by God in his image and likeness. And this is an important policy for you to have in place. And this is actually something Cardinal Newman Society has worked with many schools across the country that have good intentions, many Catholic schools that have great intentions, and they have good people doing lots of good work, and they don't have these policies written down. And so we know it's so important to have these policies written down in your handbook about things like athletics, and we go into lots of other areas as well, literature and facility use, et cetera. But sports is one for schools to get right. We have a great article on our website by Patrick Piccolo of Alliance Defending Freedom on the whole issue of this topic that we're talking about and how Catholic schools can deal with it, and how, you know, in your handbooks you should really explain, you know, our Catholic position on this and how we should lead the way. And, you know, our other schools can look to the Catholic schools to lead on this issue.
What do you think, in addition to this issue with this awful transgender ideology that's hurting so many people, including these students who are given false information about who they are, and or may truly be struggling with gender dysphoria but not treated properly for this psychological condition? What other issues do you think are front and center for parents this fall as the school season starts, Kelly?
Yeah, you know, I mean, this issue is a big one. The gender ideology, atheism and relativism, we've seen many examples of that in our public schools and even creeping into some of our Catholic schools. And so here at Cardinal Newman, you know, we want to alert families to the potential dangers in public schools and also how to look for the best Catholic schools and the best Catholic education for your kids. And this gender ideology issue is a prime example. I mean, Teresa, if we can't get this right, we wonder about what else is being taught in the schools. You know, I think about just the biological differences that should be so obvious. You know, I was a tennis player, and so the highest speed that men can serve is around 160 miles per hour. For women, it's 130 miles per hour. Right? There are just stark biological differences that make it an unfair playing field. right? And so then I do also think of the best Catholic schools and colleges that do athletics really well.
Yeah.
And I hope that some of these school districts will take a look and see what they're missing out on providing their students with by not even getting this issue right.
Yeah, what's so interesting to me with this issue is that the majority of people, even where they stand politically, I mean, this is an 80-20 or a 90-10 thing. This is not something where people are evenly divided. I mean, you had that meeting in Chicago where this woman spoke up, and the clip was from a secular source that I used, where she said, how would you feel if your daughter was competing with a 6'4" boy? Like, how does that even make any sense, right?
Right. But bravo to these parents who are standing up in these school board meetings and just speaking common sense and trying to bring that back into the discussion. But surely those who are pushing gender ideology are pushing hard to make that case, even though, like you said, so many Americans are on the side of the truth of this issue.
Do you think they're pushing so hard because they realize that the days are numbered for this? What do you think?
Yeah, it could be. It could be, Teresa. You probably know better than I do on that.
They just seem to be getting more frantic and pushing more and more of this forward, and I just wonder about it because they realize that the important thing, I think, Kelly, and you do this so well in your work as well at the Cardinal Newman Society, is to bring the truth forward about what's really happening. And not only, just about these athletic programs, but that these children who may legitimately have gender dysphoria are not being treated properly. And that has come out in the last year or so, especially with the study in Great Britain, where they showed there were whistleblowers who showed that these kids were not being interviewed or counseled before they were pushing the hormones on them, the puberty blockers and whatnot. And that is not fair to the children either.
Right, exactly. That we care about the formation of our young people and truly caring for them means sharing truth with charity. And I think that's, what Cardinal Newman Society tries to do with every education issue, that we don't back away from sharing the truth about what's going on. But we always want to point then, to the good examples and how schools and colleges can do this well. But it's, parents sometimes need to wake up to see, these school board meetings and see these things and then wonder, well, what is being pushed in the classroom that we don't know about?
Exactly. Well, we do have some great examples that you provided for us of those who are doing things well in terms of education. We're going to talk about Franciscan University. We're going to talk about the University of Mary expanding no tuition programs. We're going to talk about the Benedictines announcing a year of the scholarship and much more on our Newman Guide News on a Tuesday with Kelly Salomon, the VP of the Newman Guide programs. We'll be right back. Check out their great website, newmansociety.org, the Cardinal Newman Society. Every Tuesday, we talk education with Kelly Salomon. She's the VP of the Newman Guide programs, and we do have great examples all across the country of those who are doing education and doing it well. We do like to, as Kelly and I said earlier, to give you a balance, that we need to be aware of what's going on so we can make a difference. Love Franciscan University of Steubenville, and they are celebrating right now the renovation of a new chapel. Tell us about it.
Yes, this is very exciting news. Teresa, have you been on Franciscan's
Yes, not in a while,
before?
but I've spoken at their summer conferences. So yes, I love that campus.
Okay, Wonderful. So I've been there too, and they were able to spend 15 months renovating the chapel on campus. They doubled its seating capacity from 325 to 590, which is wonderful because if you've attended Mass there during the school year, their students pack this chapel for daily Mass. It's really beautiful. And so I just love that Franciscan has spent time, energy, and effort in devoting itself to renovating its chapel. This is something, actually, that Christendom College also built a brand new, magnificent chapel on campus in the last couple of years as well. So we love that Newman Guide colleges are focused on the whole formation of their students, body, mind, and soul. And this beautiful new chapel is really neat. What they did is they actually expanded the current ones. And so Father Pavanka, he's the president there, he said, our old chapel was never beautiful by worldly standards, but it was holy. Students encountered Christ there. Many, like me, heard the Lord's call to the priesthood or religious life within those walls. So that sacred legacy guided the university's decision not to demolish our original structure, but to preserve and expand it.
And now I understand with the expansion, they went from, according to their press release, 325 in terms of seating capacity to 590.
Yes, wonderful, because those students pack daily mass on campus, Sunday masses on campus, and so how wonderful that more of them will be able to be in the chapel at the same time. Franciscan is really a model for Catholic higher education overall, and there's another quote in their release from their president, Father Pavanka, that I think summarizes their role well. He says, "What we do here at Franciscan University matters. People all over the country and all over the world pay attention to what's happening here because so many lives have been transformed here. There are countless men and women who have encountered the Lord in this chapel, and their lives were never the same. I believe the church in this country needs this little chapel, needs this campus, and needs the men and women who are going to experience the Lord's grace, conversion, and transformation here in this place."
It's really beautiful because the campaign which they used to raise the money for the chapel was called the Rebuild My Church campaign, which is taking the line from, of course, St. Francis of Assisi. And a lot of people think that even though, like, the first time St. Francis heard it praying in front of the San Damiano cross, that he got it wrong at first because he thought that the Lord meant, okay, rebuild this little church here, rebuild my church physically. He also later understood it to be, I have to rebuild the church with the people mainly. I have to make sure God's people are being fed, spiritually and properly. But you know what? I found out recently, and having living in Italy, very close to Assisi, that St. Francis really cared about rebuilding churches because he wanted Jesus's home, the tabernacle, to be in a place that was clean, that was well done. And even if he didn't have the money to rebuild every chapel, he would make sure that they were at least brought up to snuff in terms of cleaning it and improving the areas where the people would be sitting in the pews. So he did rebuild churches, not only spiritually, but physically. That's something I didn't realize.
Wow, that's really beautiful. I mean, I think I know I can speak from personal experience of when I go into a beautiful church, it does help raise my mind and heart to God, and that beauty and that attention to making sure they are clean and they're well kept certainly can contribute to our worship of God.
I just thought that was cool, because of the Franciscans and the connection with, Franciscan University. It makes sense that they would call it the Rebuild My Church campaign. But St. Francis did care about rebuilding the church in more ways than one. So it's a great story. Okay, moving on to our next example. University of Mary expanding no tuition program.
That's right. University of Mary is one of the most affordable and faithful Catholic colleges we recommend in the Newman Guide in Bismarck, North Dakota. And they now offer 56 full tuition scholarships. These scholarships are for nursing students, elementary education, accounting, and engineering. And so they've created a unique model. Students earn their degree in 2.6 years by continuing their studies over the summer, which is a great time to be in North Dakota, and earn their degrees early and have the opportunity to compete for one of these full tuition scholarships.
Wow. Tuition free, like totally free.
Yes. And this is one of the areas where I point to where Newman Guide colleges are really committed to trying to make the education affordable for Catholic families. They don't want cost to be what stops a family from attending their university. And I've seen some really innovative ideas like this at the University of Mary that continue to grow. And what a blessing to Catholic families, and what a great idea.
In terms of the cost of colleges, is there like an average now? I mean, it's got to be, if it's a public university, like, for example, I know here in my home state of Michigan, I think University of Michigan, Michigan State, it's around $50,000 a year. Is it similar for Catholic schools, Catholic universities?
Yes, so what we do on the Newman Guide Online is we list the sticker price of all Newman Guide colleges of tuition, room, and board, the average. We also list the net price, which is the price that is actually closer to what families actually pay after scholarships, et cetera. So there's many Newman Guide colleges that average a net price of around $20,000 per year, in that range. And there are many opportunities like this for Catholic families that are motivated to seek out great opportunities. There's full tuition scholarships at Christendom College, Thomas More College, University of Mary. There's the St. Robert Bellarmine Fund that gives scholarships exclusively to students who are attending Newman Guide colleges. And, so don't let the sticker price scare you away from seeking out these colleges, from talking to the financial aid offices, from talking to their admissions offices, and making sure you visit those weekends that they have scholarship competitions, essay competitions, and check out these new full tuition scholarships at the University of Mary.
$20,000, that's after a lot of the scholarships, right? And some of the help that students may get, correct? So,
correct.
That is much lower than the price, the big ticket numbers. But at the same time, $20,000, especially if you have more than one student or child going to college, that's a hit. That's a big hit.
Yes. And so we need to find more ways to make this affordable, like what the University of Mary is doing, like what the St. Robert Bellarmine Fund is doing. And we also need to get creative with ways that students do this. Some of them will go to one of the online Newman Guide colleges for a year or two and transfer those credits and finish out their degree at a Newman Guide college. Catholic International University and Holy Apostles College and Seminary are both very affordable online options that many students will spend, a year or two taking classes, and they have great transfer agreements with many Newman Guide colleges as well.
I think that's a nice option to consider. Sometimes we get we put ourselves in a box and say, okay, we have to go off and go, quote unquote, away to school right away. But there are other ways to approach this. I still think it's good to have that experience of being away from home and learn how to balance your life and apply discipline. But again, some people may not be able to do it right out of the gate, right?
Yep. Thomas Aquinas College, they cap student debt at about $20,000 after the course of 4 years. So again, take a close look at each of these colleges, and I think that in many ways you'll find them more affordable than families oftentimes expect from the beginning. Another option I was going to mention as well is our Cardinal Newman scholarship that's coming up in December, $5,000 scholarship. That's matched by Newman Guide colleges for years 2, 3, and 4. So keep that one in mind too.
Yeah, that's a great one. We'll talk about that too and remind people of it as we get closer. Now, speaking of scholarships and whatnot, there's another story you sent me that sounds really interesting. $250 for 250. Yes. Benedictine. Tell us about that.
Yes. So in honor of celebrating the 250th anniversary of the United States on July 4th, 2026, coming up, the Benedictine College in Atchison, Kansas, is trying to raise 250 new scholarships, again, to make this education more affordable for Catholic students. Their Dean of Enrollment says it's heartbreaking to meet families who've determined Benedictine is the best place for their students but have to pursue other options instead. And so they want to bridge that gap and help reach more Catholic families with this growth in their 250 new scholarships.
There's a cool quote from the article you sent me. This is from the president, Stephen Minnis. "This is our gift back to America, the nation that has given us so much. We decided there is no better gift we can give to our country than to form more leaders who can transform the culture in America." That is really cool.
Beautiful, right? That's what it's all about. And we see graduates of these places, even back when we were talking about the Franciscan story and how their president spoke about so many leaders being formed and praying in that chapel and then going out and transforming culture. Benedictine, Franciscan, all these places, their graduates are leading the way in our culture today. I think of Jason Everett speaking about the virtue of chastity all across the world because of his experience being formed at Franciscan University.
Yeah.
The list of alumni go on and on from these places who are doing just amazing work in their careers and their communities by having that strong Catholic foundation.
I think we forget that too. Sometimes it's very easy, speaking for myself, to get caught up in the negativity and the bad stories out there and the bad things that are happening at colleges. But I just love this idea of their Transform Culture in America plan, where they have a new Independence Hall library, and they also have a proposed new Benedictine College medical school.
Yes. I love their plans for the new medical school and look forward to seeing that come to fruition in the next couple of years. A medical school that would be guided by Catholic values. How incredible, what an impact that would make for the future of the medical profession.
Yeah. And people forget that when we're talking about the Catholic faith in all areas, when you are operating from the truth of the human person, the dignity of the human person, it is going to help everyone. The Catholic Church, of course, is universal, but the Catholic teachings are indeed universal, not just for those who are Catholic.
Right, exactly. And how it seeps into every single subject at these places. So whether you're a nursing major or an engineering major, an accounting major, that you will receive that strong core curriculum that integrates the faith across the subjects, and also have the best Catholic professors who can integrate it into your accounting courses and into your engineering courses.
Yeah. Well, these are great stories, Kelly. You're doing such a great job with this segment. Richard and I really look forward to having you on because I think it's very informative for all of us, even if we don't have children that are in high school or college. I just think it's really important to be, right on the front lines there and know what's going on in our educational system because, as we just discussed, this is going to transform America, those young people.
Amen. Church's mission is evangelization. And if we're not doing that through Catholic education, how are we doing that? So it's such an important issue, I think, for Catholics at all stages of life, and to contribute and build up the best Catholic education, because that's really what's forming our next generation of faithful Catholics.
Well, you're getting your youngsters. Are they at school age yet, your kids?
They are. My two oldest are at school age, and they're off to 5th and 2nd grade.
Wow.
In a great little Catholic school that's just down the road from us, and we're so excited for them. My son altar serves at Mass every day before school starts, and it's such a blessing to be able to be a part of this small Catholic community here.
It was so funny. Yesterday I went to confession with my spiritual director, and he's our pastor, and right across from my grade school where I went to school, St. Joan of Arc in St. Clair Shores, where I discovered my faith and was taught really well, even though I fell away for a while. Just brought back a lot of memories of how grateful I am for a good Catholic education. Thank you, my dear. Great discussion as always. Our friend, of course, Kelly Salomon from Newman Guide News, and of course the Cardinal Newman Society. We'll be right back. .55 minutes past the hour. Thank you for listening to the second hour of Catholic Connection on EWTN's Radio Extra. We appreciate you and your listenership. Check out all of our great work at EWTN.com. Coming up tomorrow, I love you, tomorrow on a Wednesday version, we will have Italy's Shrines and Wonders. We are going to take you to Rome, Ostia Antica, Milan, and Pavia. Related to whom? Related to the saints of this week, the biggies, Saint Monica and Saint Augustine. So we will be describing the places where they lived. And, of course, Monica died in Ostia Antica shortly after Augustine came into the faith. He spent time there in Ostia Antica with his mom. He talked about that in Augustine's Confessions. And, of course, he spent time in Rome and also time in Milan, where he had his own school, so to speak, and was a teacher there and kept hearing about this Bishop Ambrose. Well, he ended up listening to Ambrose and converting, along with the prayers, of course, of his mom, and he was baptized at the Duomo in Milan below the church. So there's actually the baptismal font that's there that you can see. Anyway, you'll hear all about it tomorrow on our Italy's Shrines and Wonders. We're also going to be talking about a beautiful book related to Cardinal Pell. We'll hear from one of the contributors, and there's a big rosary rally coming up in early September. Yes, here we are on the brink of September, if you can believe that. We'll tell you all about the Rosary Rally, connected to, of course, Father Peyton, the family that prays together, stays together. Have a great Tuesday. We'll talk to you from D.C. area tomorrow.